Welcome to another exciting episode of Humanity 8.0, a podcast where we talk about our post-truth present and our transhuman future, with the aim of sketching out the outlines of what awaits us in the years and the decades ahead of us. This podcast is brought to you by Rokos. Companies with limited IT budgets and personnel can now get the same cybersecurity protection as big enterprises. Rokos' Secure Access Service Edge, SASE solution, with zero trust, provides enterprise-grade comprehensive cybersecurity so that you can focus on your business. For more, please visit www.rokos.com. That's ROQOS.com. And now, here's your host, Dr. Ahmed Bouzid, founder and CEO of Witlingo.
Now, what's interesting is this. It seems that virtual reality, just to sort of bring it to its bottom line, is a way to free us from the constraints of the physical world. So perhaps I am incapacitated, or perhaps I don't have enough money to travel to Paris, right? But I have enough money to have a VR set, for instance. And so I could at least, instead of having nothing or just watching, some documentary, I could experience Paris to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
So there is that interesting concept of freeing us from our physicality. Now, it gets really interesting, at least to me, in the sense that we human beings, and there's a whole school in philosophy, phenomenologists, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Who believe that the fact that we are embodied is core to who we are as human beings. And here we're sort of dabbling into something for real, right? This is the first time we're doing it for real, as opposed to theorizing. We're actually experiencing things, right? How do you think this, maybe this is a question that's not very interesting to a lot of people. I'm sure it's interesting to you and to me and to some philosophers who are watching. How does this change our conception, say, of the mind, the mind-body split, all right? And philosophical questions like, how is this going to help us think or unpack some concepts that we thought were closed or final, like the self or the concept of presence, right? How does this? You see what I'm trying to?
You. So I can nerd out on this one, if that's okay. It's super interesting for me from a philosophical perspective, certainly from a medical, scientific perspective as well. And then as a technologist, it's like, okay, how do we do this? But so, the Descartes, I think, therefore I am, right? Our sense of consciousness is in our ability to be able to think. That, and I don't want to say is wrong. It's potentially wrong, because a lot of modern neuroscience and are looking at this that suggests that there's actually our consciousness, our very consciousness, not only depends on the mind, but also on having a body, right? So those two have to exist together, and therefore our sense of consciousness exists well outside of our head, right? Instead of in our head all the time. And there people will then argue also that a lot of the problems that we have are because it's in our head, right? We have a lot of, in Buddhism, it's the monkeys in your head, right, that talk to you all the time. And the reason also why this is kind of the sense of consciousness is because our body actually collects all of these signals. This is the way, how we're connected with our particular brain. So that is actually the central theory of the use of VR. And the use of VR from a therapeutic perspective also is kind of that sense that core, hey, the mind and the body, have to be actually connected together, right? And VR actually allows you to be able to do that. In VR, as opposed to sitting in your own home, right? Forget about all the cool things about being able to design your own space. You are completely 100% present. You are in your headsets completely present, right? And your mind is interpreting what your eyes are seeing, and with the use of haptics and so forth, and sound, because it's not just a visual experience, it's also a physical experience, right? And also an auditory experience. Your mind will then interpret all of these particular signals, right? And because of that very focused sense of presence, where you have to be present inside of VR, there is no way to just space out, right? You are in it, and you're feeling and hearing everything that's in it. You're controlling what you're seeing and hearing, and feeling and touching. It is why that many people in medicine are using VR to be able to create that altered state of experience for you, right? And it's very effective because of that particular, because of the things that are possible in VR, and it's the fact that it is allowing you to be present, and then allow your mind to be able to accept all of these signals, coming into your brain. And it's the reason why it's very effective from a therapeutic perspective, reducing pain, for instance, treating phobias, the things that I talked about before, and kind of strengthening our self-identity, or sometimes when we have disconnected from our self-identity, either through dementia or schizophrenia or things of that nature. Ahmed, I don't know if I answered your question, because I think I went way off on a tangent there.
No, that's
yeah.
That's along the lines of, I'm thinking, so for example, presence, right? So I am right now present in this room, and I'm talking to you, and I'm aware of myself and so forth, right? And I'm thinking about what to say, and I'm reflecting on what you just said and so forth. So it's a shared experience. But let's say you and I were had goggles, right? And we were talking to each other. And let's say we pick a room. Let's say we go to your alcove, right? And we sit there and we talk, right? That experience, I think, would be more real, right? And I'm trying to understand in what way that experience would be more real than the one that we're having right now. And I know I'll get your answer. I'm just reflecting here. One of them is the fact that right now it feels to me like I am present in two places at the same time, more or less. Or maybe mainly present in my room, but also present in this conversation. When we go to that room, that VR room, I'm going to be a lot more present with you, and I'll forget about the fact that I'm sitting in my room if it works, meaning if I'm completely immersed. So the concept of presence is really interesting. It starts to sort of, and then presence and time, right? So we're talking, time is ticking. We are aware of where we are. We are reflecting, perhaps. Maybe we lose the fact that we are in VR. It becomes completely immersed, right? Meaning successful. And then when I come back out, I'm present somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I'm talking out loud because I'm trying to think about how is that different from, say, me being present here, and then I go outside, go to Starbucks, I'm present there, right? So I shifted presences, right? Virtual reality versus real reality, let's say, is it the same kind of a shift of presence? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's so I try not to look at it this way, that way. But a lot of times when you design in VR, you're thinking about how do I design to make it as realistic as possible and look like it's the real environment, and we're in a real world together, right? So my living room you're just sitting in my living room, looks so real, right? The only difference is that we're in our headsets, and the value to you is that you were able to teleport there, right? I mean, in essence, you're in Maryland. I'm sitting now in my home in Charleston, South Carolina, and now we're together physically. Is there really a value in that? So I look at it differently. I think virtual reality extends reality, right? If you're just designing for becomes as real as possible, that is not transformative. The word meta in itself, or metaverse, the word meta implies transformation, right? When you have metamorphosis, so transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly. So we want to be able to create these environments where it exists kind of both outside, on top of, right? And in addition to like the real world. And when we do that, then we have, I think, the right experience, for people, so that we can add to it. It's the thing, for instance, in Alco that allows us to, we're starting off in our room together, in my virtual room together, where we are sitting and chatting, and I invite you to go on a trip to drive across the United States together on a car of our choice, virtually, right, where we look like we're inside of it, and we share that experience. It's now beyond our normal world. That we are able to do these particular things or introduce other things that are limited by the physical world, right? And so that is really how I look at that whole user experience inside, and extending that presence, in essence, just to you and me face to face, but kind of extending that to feeling and feeling things together, which we can't do today, right? You're in Maryland, I'm here. I press on my keyboard. You don't know I did that, right? And so, and I know it's a simple explanation, a simple illustration, but how do we feel something together? And in that feeling together is when we create the belongingness, our ability to empathize with each other. And when we have that empathy to be able to better understand each other and resolve potential conflicts, and also or just extend our mutual shared appreciation of things.
Yeah, I mean that's why for the longest time people play checkers, right, with each other, or cards, right? Because it's just not playing. It's learning more about the person. Kind of temperament our day, being able to relax and joke and so forth. So presence. So the other one is that I think is fascinating, and I think this is going to touch on all the concepts that we may think of that are black boxes eventually, but the concept of identity, right? And that's sort of that thing that Pandora's box started opening when social media, right? People open accounts, and most people probably they have one account, but others they have maybe 2 or 3 identities that they dabble with. I think this opens up a whole world of being able to experience the world as a different, or maybe emphasize an aspect of you that is suppressed by the main you, right? What are your thoughts on identity within this? How is it going to change? Will we still have a primary identity that is dominated by the real world, or?
Well, I mean, that's what, I struggle with this one. There are applications in virtual reality where you aren't, and obviously we see it today in social media, where it's not your identity. You can be whoever you want. Right. And what you portray on Instagram is not necessarily you, right? You can also edit your appearance and do all kinds of things. You're just trying to be something that you're not. At that particular point, potentially. I mean, I'm not saying that's everybody doing that, but a bunch of people portray themselves on social media, the way they want the world to see them. And that extends into the use of VR and virtual reality, as people think, okay, I'll go into a virtual reality world and I'll just create my own avatar, right? And I'll be multiple avatars, right? I can have an avatar to do X and to do Y and so forth. Is there value in that? There absolutely is, right? I'll use an example of an application that's used for schools. Many kids are bullied, and they are because of their appearance. Well, when you go into a virtual classroom, or a virtual high school or something of that nature, and you are whoever you want to be in that virtual world, then you sometimes you have a sense of feeling a little safe now. Right. And how you interact with people. And I totally 100% get that. I don't know if that's the actual right application at the end of the day. I think that the more we disconnect from self, we have more problems, right? And so how can we then actually be ourselves, or be as true to ourselves as we possibly can, when we go into a lot of these new experiences? It's actually one of the things that we debate about and discuss, as we look at core immersive, and as I talk about, enabling other communities to participate in this thing, is these issues we have to think about, right, ahead of time, and it potentially could also influence that. Because disconnecting from self is a bad thing, and generally, at the end of the day, but people feel they need to be able to do that. Just our world is such a place, and our interaction such a place, that there's a need to be able to do that. But there's also one of the challenges also in creating, and why people do different selves is because, in technology wise, is because, again, it's an issue of data, right? My data is not, I don't control it. It's not me.
Yeah.
Well, I think with Web3, which, is not a front-end revolution, it's more of a back-end revolution. In Web3, we are in control of our data. You cannot exploit me for my particular data, right? I control that, and mutually agree on a network protocol, to be able to figure out exactly how that network is managed. But I am, I now have ownership. So can we combine those in sense of being able to create, in this new or futuristic metaverse, the ability to combine being yourself and being able to control your data, being able to own all of that together, and therefore then you can exist in these real worlds in the sense of us understanding ourselves and being who we are, using technology like VR and the things I've talked about, some of the capabilities of VR, allow us to create empathy, right? And therefore better understanding. And maybe that is something that we could strive to in the future. So, with all technologies, there's always good and there's lots of bad, and people can abuse it. And I mean, and governments are generally slow to address these particular issues. Technologists, we just want to develop the coolest things and see if it works, right? And so we're not thinking about all these things. So is there a way for us, and that's one of the things we do at Core Immersive, is to think through what we're creating ahead of time, and understand the implications of what we're creating, moving forward.
It's interesting because I was reading in preparation for this conversation, this study by the Pew Research Center, and they published it in June 2022. What's funny about it? Well, it's very interesting, but what's interesting, the most interesting thing about it is that they interviewed, 624 technology innovators, developers, business and policy leaders, researchers, activists, and so on, about the trajectory of the metaverse, and they gave the date of 2040, right? Which is a long time in the world of technology, right? And they asked them the question of, okay, do you think that between now and then the metaverse, the whole ball of wax, let's call it, right, will be a lot more differentiated than it is now? Right now it's just hodgepodge of things, right? And there are glimpses here and there and possibilities, and there are reasons why it's moving this way versus that way and so forth. But the question really was, in 2040, will we have a metaverse that is truly completely defined, or will we still be figuring it out, right? And 54% says we will have figured it out, and 46% said no, which for me means it's a toss-up.
It's a toss-up, yeah.
Right? It's like nobody really knows where it's gonna go. And I think one of the main reasons why it's so hard, it's even harder than, say, the internet. I mean, even the internet, which was, I think it was sort of a linear progression from, I mean, the web from the internet, right? So the internet for a long time was there, but the interface was not there for it to go mainstream, and went mainstream in the early 90s, mid 90s, right? Even that disruption, I would say, is sort of like linear, even though it's very significant. But this one feels to me like is exponential, right? Because it challenges a lot of basic concepts, and that's why I was sort of trying to wrestle. I'm trying to wrestle with these concepts of presence, identity. What does it mean to be, me, right? Also, how does this, in fact, how does the metaverse help me think through some things that I had taken for granted? For example, the sense of identity, right? Me being Ahmed Bouzid, right? The more I started thinking about a metaverse and all these worlds that I could be part of in a very interesting way and in a very meaningful way, the more I started thinking about maybe I want to go and explore, I don't know, how it is to be a female, minority female. I don't know. Maybe I assume that I see how people treat me. I just get that firsthand sense of it, right? And so then, does that mean that the self Ahmed Bouzid is changing in that sense during that period of time? I'm somebody else, or am I conducting an experiment? And then when I come out of it, am I still the same person, or have I evolved? Not that I have gained some empathy, and so that it just unpacks a lot of things that I didn't feel I was unpacking when the web arrived, right? It was a matter of, okay, we can do things a lot easier now. I can get access to information, or the big thing for me is after Google, and let's say in the early 2000s, there was no piece of fact that you couldn't access, really, right?
Yeah.
Before that, you had, I don't know, I don't know what the population of China is right now, so I don't know. I can live with that.
Right.
But then after the web, sort of, we cannot claim that we don't know something that is knowable. We can go and look it up, right? So that's
Yes.
sort
Yeah.
of, anyway. So in 2040, right? What is your opinion? Do you think, since you are deep into it and you are dealing with both, the big concepts as well as the plumbing, do you see it, what do you see us being? And that's a long time again, 17 years.
Yeah, it's a long time. And I try to leave it up to all of those experts and to make to decide to predict what they want to predict. I can tell you, so just there's a lot of things that are missing from a technology perspective to get there in 2040, right? One is we really don't have the server space we don't have the server power, right? To be able to have this. It's not possible today. Just the reality. It's not possible today. There's also lots of agreements that organizations would have to be able to build this thing, right? It is completely different business models that we're going to have to address to be able to have these things where there is no ownership and it is this peer-to-peer and
That's another concept, ownership, right?
there's so much of it, right?
Yeah.
So it's precisely all of these challenges, the things that in the web, right? It doesn't actually substantially change me. Okay, yeah, on social media, they feed up stuff to me in the algorithm that potentially changes my mind or whatever on something or makes me lean with me or whatever. But in essence, it's still me at the end of the day, right? There's no altered state.
Exactly.
As you said, it is exactly all of these questions is the reason why it is super important that our discussions and not just our discussions, but our development and design should be inclusive.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, if it gets to 2040, that's awesome. If it's before that, awesome. Actually, let me rephrase it. It'll only be awesome.
Okay.
And if we only will learn, if we learn from our mistakes in the past in terms of other technologies and specifically the internet and social media and so forth, it becomes awesome when it is something that we build together, whether we do that by 2030 or 2040 or 2050, that is equitable, that is built by all of us, which is the principle around anything we do. Web3 is decentralized, right? Is built by all of us, because these issues that you just brought up are things that we need to think about. And it's not that are meaningful, right? That can alter how we interact with each other and potentially how humanity might be in 2040 or so forth, and if we could have two different worlds, right? I'll be dystopian about it. We could have the dystopian world is what we saw in Ready Player One, right? Where corporations own certain things and we work within that particular space to get our tokens, and you can be whoever we want, sure, in that particular world, but they own us, right? That could be that world. And the physical environment just completely deteriorates, right? That's a particular world that we could be. Or we could be in a world where, because of the things that we've learned with technology and our ability to leverage technology in the right way, that we do have a lot of, we start building the empathy. Ahmed deciding to use VR today and do an experiment, companies today are doing this. PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC in the diversity group has built a virtual reality experience where you are, in fact, going into this office as not you. You're a different race or different gender or different identity, in a sense, orientation, and you see how other people treat you, right? And that is really potentially looking at your biases, your hidden biases as well. It potentially can change. So depending on how we use things, we could get in a world where it's just great. We have so much empathy for each other because we understand each other really well. And Metaverse in 2040 is fantastic, right? So I don't know where it actually will be, but it is essential that we think about these things and we include people, and the discussions happen now, and that the equipping of folks who generally have not been equipped to participate in discussions happen, which is, again, what we're trying to do.
Yeah. There are many things I wanted to talk about, and I didn't get a chance to, so and the hour is up. I guess the bottom line really is, number one, this is definitely something big that's happening right now, right? Number two, let's learn from the past and try to be more proactive. And this is why I thought, as I said at the beginning, you're a very interesting person, is that you are, you're sort of trying to learn from mistakes we made in the past, which is, right, we excluded a lot of folks that we didn't take input from them, and we didn't include them in designing and so forth. And hopefully pushing the envelope this time within the world that you're involved in, with that problem sort of, taken care of, right? Now, I think personally, I think these are really very exciting times, because they not only enable us to do things, but I think they are helping us unpack a lot of stuff that we thought was packed, right? Again, identity, what does it mean to be present? What does it mean? What is truth, right? Do true things happen in the metaverse? Yeah, so then what does that mean for something to be a fact?
Right.
Right? It's sort of some what is a fact in the metaverse, or what is a fact in when we are in and when we stop that experience and sort of that experience disappears, is that a memory just the same as a memory in the real world or not? I think it is. Anyway, it's for me, it's the most interesting thing about it, as in addition to using it, is it really helps me as a tool to think through concepts and and theories and all those kinds of things that otherwise are just sitting there because they blend with the rest of my way of being. Tell you what, thank you so much, Paolo. You have been amazing as always. I think I could have 10 more conversations with you about this.
My pleasure, Ahmed. It's always great to be able to chat about these things. We chat about them all the time, and when we meet once, one-on-one, and this and a bunch of other issues. So it's great to be able to be part of your podcast and to talk about these issues.
Thank you for saying that. And I will list. Are there places that people can go to delve into your work? Maybe you can share with me some of those links, just so that people can go and learn more about what you do, or learn more about the things that fascinate you, that you think folks should delve into.
Yeah, so it's not our software anymore, but it's still available to be used. And I talked about Alcove. It's alcovevr.com is the website. Fantastic organization. That was also our developers on this are as we built Alcove is now owning it, and will continue the mission, the social mission of using Alcove as a way to connect older adults together and to reduce to improve social connections and deal with loneliness. They do such fantastic work also with working in a lot of assisted living communities with some of their VR technology. So you can go to alcovevr.com to be able to see that as well. Certainly, as we at AARP Foundation continue to, we are always exploring technologies to be able to and see how we use those technologies. The AARPfoundation.org is a great resource just to kind of, to look to see what the foundation's work is overall, outside of just technology and some of the innovations that we do. And Core Immersive is www.coreimmersive.com. That site's changing. Where my goal is to actually a lot of the topics that we talked about now is to allow folks to be able to discuss those topics, put their own opinions, and publish those, as well as highlight some of the VR creations that they have, and XR creations they have. They're really focused on how it solves particular, social issues. So that's a site also that you can go to. It's not quite up there yet. It's still in its infancy, but it's something we're working through at this point.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to list all those in the show notes. And Paolo, thanks again. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks so much, Ahmed. Okay, talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Humanity 8.0 with your host, Dr. Ahmed Bouzid, founder and CEO of Witlingo. Brought to you by Rocos. Thanks for listening.